88 Duelists step up for one of the biggest, Duelist Nexus tournaments online that we've had the chance to see, and these results are actually going to be insane. And yes, one of the coolest stall decks that I have seen in all of time. No Kashtira. I'll just pass on over. I'll make 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. Of course, Kong's Cards ran this. Use discount code MCOL40 and save on your purchase. So, highest represented deck in top 16 is going to be 3 branded players. Wait, what? That's 3 branded in the top cut. Okay, well, that's interesting. We also had 2 purely. Okay, well, what else is going on here? We had for Higher Runic, Mathmech, Minkonko, Unchained, Marincess, Swordsoul, Manadeem's Scareclaw, Earthbox, Infernoble Toolbox, Philanderies, and what we're going to be calling Cash Money Dollar Bills. Now, technically, out of this top cut, there wasn't a real Kashtira deck. What I'm calling Cash Money Dollar Bills here is literally just a unicorn and a Fenrir being splashed into a deck with like 1 Raceloth, which, technically doesn't do it a lot of justice, but that's going to be in the stall deck. Somebody's going to be like, what? Top 8. This is 8 different decks for this event. And if this is any indicator of, a little bit of a power shift happening here, this is actually very interesting. For Higher Runic, all right, Mathmech, Minkonko, Unchained, Marincess, Purely, Swordsoul, and that Manadeem Scareclaw deck. Now, when we get to look at deck list here, you'll see this Manadeem Scareclaw deck. You're going to look at this and you're going to go, Robbie, that's not even technically Manadeem. It's got the sub-extension package. It's checking all of the boxes for the things that you would typically expect for something like this. So, it's very interesting, but there's no Kashtira in the top 8 of this event, which is actually pretty insane. I'm not going to lie. Like, if you got this amount of diversity cooking out here, this format is actually pretty freaking insane, all things considered. Let's pass on over to top deck list. Winning our event here is our For Higher Runic. Yay! The Deep Draw Turbo Sprite. All the things that you're used to seeing with this deck. Being able to do the Donner play into good old Raphael, get the full excavation, detour your opponent, have your opponent go, what in the world is actually going on here? That is like the level of insanity that you're getting right now with this deck. And I'm not surprised to see that this deck did manage to pull out a first place. Like, I'll clap for it. It's got consistency going for it. The deck is nuts. Next up was Mathmech. Yeah, Mathmech did lock down second place out of this. A lot of people, they just don't know how to play against the extra deck down here. I do see that we're getting the chance to play the Link Decoder, which actually does make all the difference, but all of your, even with like Circular at 1, it's still got a showing here. There's a lot of pressure that this deck can put on the opponent that makes it really get the chance to go into a good advantage system, and that's really what you want to see here. Next up here, we have Minkonko. God, the Axe of Fools. You gotta love the fact that all of the value, all of like the extension packages, I know a lot of people have looked at this and are like, I don't really like, playing the combo version of this. This Duelist has had so much success out of this, online series of events that at this point in time, I got to give them recognition. They always are, having top finishes, and it really does prove that, like, this deck is something to really worry about. Next up, Unchained coming in the top 4. Biggest things about this list. I mean, we're on triple Book of Eclipse, triple copies of Book of Moon here. You're going to be pressuring your opponent a lot with these. Don't underestimate how good the section, or the 6 books can actually be to making sure, you're able to play the game. Unchained needs to be able to answer threats, or it's going to have an issue being able to establish. And I think that's the biggest thing that's fearful with Unchained is not being able to play the game, as per usual. Marincess, what in the world? Talk about the amount of diversity out here. When you are setting up the Aqua Argonaut here and your opponent cannot physically do anything about this, that's once again where this deck seems to shine. A big towers backed up with some immediate, maximum protection is actually pretty decent out here. And all real things considered, I mean, if you don't want to play Marincess's format, you don't have to, but this is a pretty strong showing for this deck, showing that, hey, this is doing well. All right, Hi, Purely. Okay, so all real things considered, 3-3 line for this. We're playing the Droll, standard main deck in the Harvest Feather Duster. That way we can, answer anything we need to. We are playing the Herald of Abyss, immediate spot removal. And then we're playing the one copy of the Espirly Nor in here, once again to clean up set, the one leap. It's very interesting to see that we're not capitalizing on any more copies of Leap. I know a few people are like, maybe you should play more Leaps. I don't really think that you want to bulk down the deck all that much, honestly. Next up here we have Bystial Sword Soul with one Apple Dragon. My first immediate comment when I first saw this earlier, I was like, what in the world? Like, I knew people were trying out more extended Bystial packages, but I feel like maybe that this, I don't know, it worked out. I think that's the best thing that I can say about this, but very interesting to see the amount of value that was being established and thrown around here for this. Next up here, so this is our 8th place Scareclaw Manadeum list. See what I was talking about here? It's one Manadeum. Monster just kind of like stepped through some like the sub combos. We're playing tunings in here to get to the Revolution Synchron's, and then we're playing Sekka's Light in here as well. We're focusing more on like the Prism side of things. That way, basically doing more Scareclaw sorts of things. And then, of course, good old Eradicator Epidemic Virus down here. Who doesn't love your opponent not getting a chance to play the game? 9th place here is Infinitrack Earthbox. Actually, kind of a massive shame that this did miss the little cutoff here, kind of push through into the top cut. But honestly, Rune Force is a stupid good card. And obviously, the lack of Kashtira that was kind of immediately floating around down here in the lower bracket, I think was actually pretty impressive. All real things considered, deck is, if you're a good pilot and you can play this, you're going to do good. 10th place here is our Infernoble Duelist. They actually had to look at all the rogue these decks had to grind through. You're not really prepared for a lot of this stuff, and a deck like this that obviously wants to be able to climb up and establish the Charlemagne here, having the larger coverage of negates usually will do good, but if you're not prepared for certain matchups, or like Dark World No More might not get you as much value, I find that very, very interesting. Next up here, hi Flonderies, how are you? This build is so strange to me. First of all, the Fossil Dyna is fine. This was a pretty cool tech choice, but we're just main decking one Featherstorm here, obviously to thrust into it, I suppose. But there are no other versions of the Harpy's Featherstorm in here, period. A lot of the tech choices I find very, very interesting in terms of option trees that they were trying to cover here. I don't know. I just found this very interesting in terms of deck build versus, the rest of the format here. Next up is our branded list. Oh, we've gone this far without seeing a branded list. We are on Triple Dark World No More here, so you can board break your opponent and try to clean things up. Super Polys as per usual. And then, of course, we are playing the Nadir Servant package in here. I will say that Nadir did kind of look like it disappeared off into the sunset. I think a lot of people were definitely looking at it, and they were like, do we still continue to play this? It's pretty good. And shout out to Maximus here. This is actually kind of an interesting little tech choice, bringing up the end here as well. Next up here, hi, it's our other Purely Duelist. We're once again only playing one Leap, but this build actually extended out and went into the additional copies of Espirly Nor, which is typically what you do want to see. And they're actually playing Epsilon in here as well. This is actually very, very nice to see. Epsilon with the 1 Gamma. With Gamma at 1, you do kind of look for compensation packages in order to try to cover the deck's weakness, and it looks like it worked out. Next up here, we have what was called the stall deck of the day with Spiritual Swords of Revealing Light. This is beautiful to actually see this working out here. That this deck was able to carry its way in the top 16 here. So you do play like I guess we did play Fenrir's and Unicorns. This is all, for the back-breaking, beautiful packages here. And you have extra deck claiming resources in here as well. I can't even begin to explain to you this pile. It's ingenious. And then, of course, we have another branded list down here. This one's playing Branded and High Spirits, a little bit more standard. We are citing the Masquerade 4-time in here. And you do see the Maximus gaining a little bit more traction in this build as well. Very interesting to see just how this deck has shaped up in between the different variations and which sectors actually do find more success out here in the overall long run for this. So once again, Albaz doing Albaz-y things. And then our last list here, another Fallen of Albaz deck. All of these builds playing the Dark Dragoon. I mean, it's come down to this deck needs as much negate pressure as it can actually get to pressure the opponent in order to play the game. But you do see between all of the variations out here. This one opted to not play the Lulu Walleth, which is fine. The other two did play it. But that's your breakdown. Honestly, I'm still on Life Tilt about the Swords of whatever deck, but all right. So please, remember, check out Kong's Cards. Use discount code MCool40 and save on the website, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.